Hello. Today we're going to talk about a little tip I have that I call getting closer to the money and how it will allow you to become irreplaceable and charge a lot more for your clients. So let's dive in. So being closer to the money, what does it mean? Put simply, it is basically how traceable your efforts are to money in the pocket of whoever's hiring you. And since we're freelancers, all of this is kind of in the context of being a freelancer. So the specific definition is if your client hires you to do something, how easily you can prove that that thing you did made them more money than they paid to hire you. And so if you think about people like movie stars, hedge fund managers, CEOs, they all make great money. And the reason why is that their actions are very closely tied to money being generated. So if you pay, I don't know, who's a big movie star, Brad Pitt, a few $1 million to be in your movie, or a few $100 million, however much Brad Pitt gets paid, he's going to draw a bigger crowd than that because people just like Brad Pitt and they'll see Brad Pitt in whatever he's in. And so when we carry this over to our freelancing business, we don't really have much to learn from Brad Pitt, but we do have something to learn, which is thinking of how our work generates money. So that's kind of the core of the whole principle. Doctors and lawyers make a lot of money because they require a lot of training, and their stuff that they do is important, and you can't just go wing it and do it yourself most of the time. But we're not trying to be doctors or lawyers, so we're not trying to necessarily, I guess, use the fact that not everybody can do what we do to charge more. And instead, we need to provide more value with our work to charge more. And one of the challenges with being a WordPress developer, which I'll get into in a minute, is that there are so many WordPress developers and the bar is so low to be a WordPress developer because some people are proper developers, in air quotes, and others are more like assemblers where they could build something with some plugins and pre-made themes, but they couldn't necessarily hack PHP code. And so there's this really wide range of skill levels that all can kind of ostensibly do the same job. Hello to my neighbor's guard dog. So this idea of being closer to the money is having financial results tied to our work. So a good example that I have here is like, if I told you could pay me $1,000 to do some work for you that I guaranteed would make you $5,000, would you do it? The answer is probably. And a great example of this is if you have, say, a dentist office and each customer that comes in their doors is worth several $1,000s. They would happily pay more for leads or for a website that converts better because they know that if they get a new website done and that new website causes them to get, say, 2 or 3 new customers a month, that equates to thousands of dollars of new business thanks to this new website. So here are some examples that are relevant to WordPress designer developer sorts of jobs. So design. This is one that often is difficult for people to tie back to money. But what I have here, a couple examples. So I made you a pretty looking website. That is only as valuable as the person deems for their own value systems. If they really value nice looking design, it's worth a lot to them. If they don't, it's not. But if you have a new design that you do for a client that you can show how it increased conversions. So let's say someone's collecting leads on their website and your new design gets them more leads, then it suddenly becomes much easier to justify the cost of design. Marketing, if you think of jobs that are close to the money, marketing is just about the closest to the money you can get. But nonetheless, if you're setting out to be a WordPress developer, you're probably not thinking about marketing as much. If you are, great job to you because it's going to help you raise your rates and stuff. But if you're not, and you're just wanting to build cool websites, the marketing extent you might do is this top one of I set up an autoresponder message so that when people send like a contact form, they get an email back that says, hey, thanks for emailing us or whatever. How does that stack up in value compared to, say, building out a funnel for somebody that converts those people who fill out the contact form at a much higher rate, sends them automated messages and nurtures them as prospective customers and gets them in the door? And you can track that funnel to thousands of dollars worth of new business that came from the funnel. Obviously, more valuable. Ads, another easy one because it's so close to the money naturally anyway. And so an example here is creating cool Instagram posts versus optimizing ads and reducing their ad cost or their cost per lead. And then dev is one that's a little bit more difficult, which would be something like, I made you code that is not spaghetti. That would be the not tied to money one. And a more tied to money one would be something like having elegant code. Sorry for the mic bump. Having elegant code that cuts the the site's load speed down, which will impact their Google SEO. Or I don't know other good ones off the top of my head. It took me a minute to think of this one for the dev one. So how to actually add more value without getting closer to the money. And the dev one is a good example of that. Like, it's hard to think of ways that coding can get closer to the money sometimes. A lot of that one's going to come down to the tasks that you're doing, but they're like the specific stuff you're coding more so than the quality of code itself. I'll get more into the non-closer to the money increased value in a different video because we're already at 8 minutes or 6 minutes or something. But I wanted to talk about it a little bit. So if you're building like brochure sites, so you build a site for a small business or whatever, you can still charge more without getting closer to the money by simply adding more value. And I have a few bullet points here in the slides, if you're following along, that the main ways, in my experience, 13 years working as a freelancer, the main ways that you deliver value as a brochure site freelance builder are the designs, which if you're setting out to be a coder, you probably don't like to hear. But I've noticed none of my clients have ever cared about my code, not even one. But they do care about my designs. Most clients hire me for the designs. But I believe what makes me special and awesome is that I have a lot higher quality code and like build out than a lot of people that they might hire. But nonetheless, they don't hire me for that. It might be what I deliver, but it's not what they look for. So that's one way to deliver more value and charge more, is just have better designs, which we could talk about in a different video where I'll talk about getting better designs when you are not a designer and don't want to be a designer. But for now, just have it in your mind. Knowing enough about UX and marketing strategy to be able to be a strategic advisor. I'll be creating another video talking about cogs versus conductors. But basically, if your knowledge is such that you only can own one small little part of the process, which is maybe plugging stuff together and building the site, it's hard to justify really high rates because the client is going to have to do a lot of management of you, and they're not going to really see you as an advisor. They're going to see you more as like a cog, someone who can do this one specific thing, and they probably need to check your work and keep a lot of oversight. Versus like when I work with clients, I'll have an initial call with them where I am interviewing them, asking what their priorities are, and I'm kind of guiding this website strategy to make recommendations for what I think will get them to their desired end result. And when you're in that position where you can be in more of an advisory role, you add a lot more value. And obviously you can't really BS your way into this, or you could, but I don't think you should. This is the kind of thing that comes with time and experience and learning. So if you ask yourself what stands between you and being able to like do UX strategy or marketing strategy for a client site in advance of even building it, asking yourself what feels uncomfortable, and trying to chart like a roadmap to get those skills to be more of a strategic advisor will be a very good thing. And another aspect of value delivery without getting closer to the money is being able to take like work off their plate and being able to just have them trust that you can go out and do your job and deliver great results without having to watch over you. I think part of the reason that people pay me the high rates that they do is that I've done so much work and I've been around for so long that they just have no fear at all about me taking their money and running, which is a common thing with developers. A lot of people hire somebody and they just don't finish the job and they take the money. So that trust component is a big part of it as well. So something I touched on at the beginning of the video that I want to cover now is the proximity to the money of different types of dev roles. So developers who build SaaS products, so software as a service products, are naturally closer to the money, assuming they're working for like a profitable company like Airbnb or Google or whatever. And the reason why they're naturally closer to the money is because these software products, their business is the software. So if the software sucks, their business sinks. And thus, they need to hire the best possible developers to even maintain the thing that is their whole business. But for WordPress developers, that's not quite the case usually, unless you're building like a WordPress-based app for somebody or something like that. For the most part, most like small business sorts of clients are just needing a brochure a lot of the time. And even for, well, I guess a good counterpoint to what I'm saying is like, say, a blogger, their whole business is the website. So it's a lot more important for them. Or a podcaster, a lot of their business is the website, but a lot of it's podcast. But in any case, like the product and the business itself tends to be a bit more separated for WordPress stuff. And a lot of WordPress builders are these assemblers, as I call them, who don't really know PHP code. And if that's you, don't worry about it, because that's where everybody starts, myself included. But since most developers are in that area and desperate for work, there's a lot of competition for really cheap websites. If you are a WordPress assembler, it's worth considering what you can do to be more valuable. And we have some action steps on that in a second. But your paths that you can take are basically, if you don't want to learn to code and you just kind of want to be an assembler, or maybe you're more interested in design, you can just get better at doing what you do. Like you can become a better strategic advisor. You can get better at your designs. In my opinion, it's really important to be really good at building good sites that are fast, mobile friendly, easy to edit, and not filled with spaghetti code. But I'm not going to tell you how to grow your business. You probably have a vision for the kind of work you want to do, and we're going to explore that now in a minute. But basically, to get out of the competition at the bottom, you have to have a pathway that is going to make you special, that gives somebody a reason why the work that you're going to produce for them is not just interchangeable with the work that a million other people would produce on Upwork. That's kind of the real thing that starts to get you into a different tier of pricing, in my opinion. So let's talk about action steps. For those of you watching on YouTube, know that this video is part of my free How to Transition from Your Dev Job to Freelance course. So in it, we cover how to get more freedom right now at your current job, how to get more freelance clients booked, how to build your side hustle freelance income to be large enough to quit your job, stuff like that. So if you want to get in on that and get this free worksheet we're about to dive into, just go to quityourdevjob.com and join the free course. So once you're logged in, you can just go to your dashboard and then click the Transitioning from a Dev Job to Freelance course, and then go to the Transitioning to Freelance Full-Time module. You can see I'm still fleshing these out at the time of recording. And then go to Getting Closer to the Money. Within Getting Closer to the Money, you'll find this video in the lesson tab, but then under Materials, you'll see the lesson slides and the worksheet. So if you pull up this worksheet PDF, this is what we're going to go through together next. Once you've downloaded it, I recommend you open it in Adobe, not in Chrome, because I have some fillable fields, and if you fill it in Chrome and save it, they will not get saved. So first, describe a day in the life of your dream business. And I'd recommend you either pause, take the time to fill it out, or maybe watch this and print it and fill it out later. But this is the kind of thing that might take 30 or 40 or an hour minutes of journaling about. I'm going to probably just rush through and leave some stuff off. But it's also, as you're going through this, worth considering, like, is your dream business model long-term to be freelancing, running an agency, or not? Is it a stepping stone? For me, I really love the freedom that being a freelancer gives me, but I'm more interested in growing products, so like software products or SaaS products, or something just a little bit more scalable. But that's just my own preference. So first one, day in the life of your dream business. take some time to think about it. I probably won't really fill this out in detail because it would take quite a while. But for me, I'll tell you right now, the general vibe is that I would like to be mostly in maker mode when I'm doing, and this is going to be kind of coming up in question number 2, but for me, doing making oriented work is what I live for. When I am like building new features for a piece of software or like, doing the fun stuff, I get really zoned in. And obviously fun is subjective. But when I have to do like detail-oriented stuff like bug squashing, I don't really love it. I really enjoy strategy. I'm one of those people that's like a starter, not a finisher. I've taught myself how to be a finisher, but I don't naturally like to finish things. So think about what your dream business looks like. What kind of business is it? A freelance agency? What kinds of projects are you working on? How many staff do you have? How much are you working? What are your clients like? That sort of thing. So I encourage you to pause and fill that out. And it looks like my camera memory card is now full. So I'm just going to keep walking you through this on my screen without my face. I got to get a new memory card. So reflect on your favorite types of work. What do you do during that dream day? So this is where I talked about how I would like to be doing the initial feature building, not so much the like bug squashing stuff. Is it coding? Is it design? Is it doing music? Is it doing audio, video, strategy, writing? Sorry for the mic bump. So have a think about what the ideal work is that you want to do. And it's not so much about tasks, but more about like buckets or types of work. And then the last thing we're going to do, which is the most time-consuming part probably, is for all those types of work, I'd like you to use this large space here to try to break that type of work out into various ideas of like tasks that are closer to the money in that type of work. So for example, let's say I had coding written down. The closest to the money type of coding would be like building, if I'm wanting to be a WordPress developer specifically, it would probably be building WordPress-based software for customers, or like building custom plugins or custom themes, or building API integrations, building things that not every WordPress assembler could build, if that makes sense, like things that will be harder to hire for. If it were design, I would try to think of like what kinds of design are most valuable to businesses. And with most of these things, you'll benefit by pairing them with other things. So design is an example of one that's kind of difficult to be super valuable on its own sometimes, because every artistic person wants to be a designer. But if you can pair design with marketing things, like I mentioned before, how you could optimize people's paid advertising with your designs, that's a good example of something that's closer to the money. So go through the types of work you want to do and try to think of ways that you could just, you could do tasks that you could trace back to revenue generated or money saved or customers retained or whatever for clients. And that's about it. If you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate a like and a subscribe and all of that typical YouTube stuff. Thanks, and I'll see you around.